Welcome back to the Hoof and Fang podcast. This is Kirt.
And this is Maz.
And that's really all we have to say. So thank you and goodbye.
Shortest episode ever.
Yeah. Can you imagine?
Yeah, right.
It'd be a dream to edit.
Yeah. He's like, done. I have the whole evening to myself.
Yeah, there we go. So yeah, how are you?
I'm good. It feels weird because I didn't come into the office yesterday. So I keep thinking today is Monday. And so like my whole schedule is weird in my brain. But it's fine. I'm super caught up on work. One of those like really weird, rare things.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'm actually like 2 weeks out instead of just a week. So I'm not like scrambling to get things done. So
is this partially because they hired someone to finally help you?
Yeah, that's it.
Hey,
yeah. She's
what
smart.
A concept.
Yeah, exactly. She's smart. She picked everything up really fast. So she just hit the ground running. So I'm like, oh, we're ahead. That's cool. That hasn't been my life in a year.
Right.
So yeah, it's pretty nice. So
well, nice to get that sorted out before the holiday season is coming.
Exactly. I'm glad we're getting ahead because it's going to be stupid in like 2 months when everything just explodes and we hit peak. So right now though, it's kind of cool.
Well,
kind of nice. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Will it feel maybe just like a 2-day work week since you only?
Yeah.
Can you trick your brain into thinking that way?
I mean, if I get caught up enough, I can go, and I hope to God my bosses never ever find this podcast or figure anything out. But if I can get back to where I want to be, then I could kind of like work like heads down for like 2 or 3 days. And then like Thursdays and Fridays, I can just make those writing days. So I can like check emails and then write. Like that's what I used to do when everything was like the gears were running correctly.
Right.
I had 2 extra days of just afternoon writing where I'd check emails every once in a while. But for the most part, I can just get words down. It was so awesome. Yeah. So I'm really excited. I think we're getting there.
I would hope any employer would recognize that it's all a trade-off.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're going to be slow. Sometimes you're going to be overworked.
Yeah.
They also make you work holidays and some weird overnight shifts and like, so.
Yeah. When peak hits, I'm going to be doing midnight calls. I'm going to be up at 2:00 in the morning. So they can let me
there's a trade-off.
Yeah, for sure.
And as long as you're getting it done, that's the important part, right?
Yeah, exactly. And things get done. But I'm so close to being able to finish this last Wild Contracts book that honestly, if I could get to that point where I have like Thursdays and Fridays to really get that extra just push in, holy shit, I can get this wrapped up before I think I'm already going to be a little late on my deadlines. Yeah. So maybe I could at least hit my goal.
Hey,
so
that'd be something.
Yeah, right. But yeah, that's what's going on in my land. How about you?
Oh, good. I just went to a conference this weekend.
Yeah.
So it was the inaugural, the first annual Young Adult Midwest Conference. It took place in Naperville. So I headed down to the suburbs of Chicago, mostly, honestly, to see some friends. Yeah. So they did do a narrator panel.
Okay.
I did volunteer for the narrator panel, but I was not selected.
Maybe next year.
A whole bunch of other people were like, it was a huge panel. I think there were like 8 or 9 panelists.
Oh my God.
And I was like, what? And like, they all flew in from somewhere else. Like
that doesn't make any sense.
They all came in from New York, LA, or like a couple of other places.
Yeah.
And there was me and there was another guy there who's just from the Chicago area, and we're both just like, hi.
Yeah.
And another narrator from Grand Rapids. So like all the local people came.
Yeah.
Just to like see people we know and like network with authors and stuff like that. So there were 3 of us narrators there who weren't on the panel, and we were all the closest.
That's
we
hilarious.
were all the people who would not have needed to buy a plane ticket to come to this conference.
Yeah. That's okay.
So I did actually talk to the narrator who organized it afterwards. And she was like, oh, I should have had you be on the panel. And I was like, I volunteered.
Yeah. Maybe something for next time.
Like I responded to your post when you were asking for interest.
Yeah.
But oh well. So yes, maybe next time. The big takeaway from the weekend was really just like, so many of these narrators had never done something like this before. Yeah. Because if you don't work in romance or gay romance specifically, like you're not used to going to conventions and doing narrator panels.
Interesting.
So like this was their first experience for many of them, even though they've been doing the work as long or longer than I have. They have more accolades than I do, like super talented people, but like narrator panels at a book conference aren't really a thing.
That's weird. I guess I've only ever been to romance ones. So I just thought that was normal. I thought that was a kind of a...
And if we think about it, like they even, like we went to GRL for many years.
Right.
They only started doing narrator panels like the year I came onto the scene, and it had been going for years before that.
That's
so
fair.
Like, even though they were ahead of the curve, like it's not something that's been around for terribly long. So they were just like, this was so great. Like people in the audience were engaged. They were interested. They asked good questions. And I was like, yeah, people care about audiobooks.
Yeah.
Like this should be a thing for everything.
Yeah.
So we're sort of like resolved now that like we need to work together to make sure that this is a known thing that can and should happen at book conventions. And somehow we need to work together to make sure that it's like easy for someone to implement. So that's like add another project to my list.
Of course.
When a musical is opened in the fall, I think that'll be one of my high priorities is like, we got to work to somehow make it so easy and clear for convention organizers to like, here's your how-to packet.
Yeah.
And here's a list of names of people who would be interested or good. Because I mean, the thing is, we know they're not going to pay narrators to show up. The value would have to be in getting to meet people we could work with.
Right. Yeah.
And just explaining that to convention organizers, like put us in front of authors or publishers.
Yeah. And
we will come to your convention and do a panel and be entertainment for you.
Yeah. That's a sweetheart deal.
Right?
Yeah.
You know? So yeah, so that was my weekend. And it was so nice just to be around other narrators. Like,
yeah.
You know, it's just one of those things that like in so many other jobs, even if you don't do the same thing, you sort of can relate.
Yeah.
You know, like when I had an office job, I had lots of friends who worked in offices or in retail or in restaurants or whatever, all like basically customer service oriented jobs. And like we could talk to one another and they understood and you can bitch about things. Nobody knows what I do.
Yeah. I mean, it's a very specific skill set.
It's
and job.
very specific.
Yeah.
People don't even know how to ask about what I do.
For sure.
And so when you can go to a space where you're around people who know what you do, and I was talking to my friends about this weekend. It's like, with a few exceptions, for some reason, narrators are just the coolest, nicest people.
Really? I mean, I shouldn't be shocked by that.
Yeah, like thanks for that.
Really?
Wow. Huh. Interesting. That's not my experience.
I mean, to be fair, I've only met a few of them and everyone has been delightful, but I haven't met like a smattering.
100% of your sample size.
Yeah,
and yet
been
you're
great.
Still like,
Well, I mean, I don't know everybody.
Like, again, with a few exceptions, like it really is like a totally welcoming community. We all try to help each other to a degree. Like we're, you know, it's sometimes tricky when somebody who would like basically be up for the same work as you is like, hey, would you help me? And it's like,
do I give you good advice or bad advice?
Like you're going to go after some of the work that I do.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it's a pay it forward community. We all want to share what we know and help each other out and share resources. And we were talking about it this weekend. And I think it may have even been me who made the point that just like, in order to do this work, you have to have a certain amount of empathy because how can you portray characters or tell somebody else's story if you're not able to some degree feel what they're feeling?
Yeah.
And so it's almost like that's the base level of like the type of human being who becomes a narrator is somebody who's really good at empathy and good at communicating and isn't afraid to like dive deep into like emotional discussions.
Yeah.
And, so like we were joking and I was like, oh my God, it's so nice to meet you. Let's talk about childhood trauma, you know, but like those are the sorts of things that happen when you're around narrators. And I think it's because we're all sort of cut from the same cloth. Especially those of us who come from a marginalized background where we have not always had the freedom to act like ourselves,
right? Or
have not been celebrated. And again, I think all of that builds empathy and then, yeah. So that's just sort of my whole diatribe on how nice it was to be around other narrators because it really is. It's just so great.
Yeah. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Just being able to just be around like, I don't want to say tribe because that's overused and whatever, but like your people, your spaces.
Yeah.
So that's awesome.
Well, and it's so strange because I've been doing that other podcast, my narrator podcast. And so 2 of the people I do that podcast with were there. And one person who we've had on as a guest was there.
Oh, cool.
And then I just went to New York in April. So 2 of the people I saw this weekend, I also saw when I was in New York because that's where they live.
That's amazing.
3 of the people.
Oh, that's so cool.
And so it's just one of those things where it's like,
yeah,
it's so nice. Every few months, find a reason to hang out with people in person is great. But it genuinely felt like my friend Gail and I were looking at each other like, it's so nice to hang out. It feels like we hang out a lot, but it's all online.
Right.
It's all it's all podcast recording or meetings about the podcast. So we do see each other and talk to each other fairly frequently.
Right.
We text.
But it's different.
Like we sat down to dinner on Saturday night and I was like, this is so nice.
Yeah.
Like we're in the same place at the same time.
And you're also not talking shop and like working. You just,
what do you guys? We have a tendency to talk shop.
Just kidding.
Because it's so,
yeah.
less rare for the New York narrators because they can get together and talk to each other.
Right.
But for the rest of us, it's like, talk to me about what you're doing.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like, we want to know.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Man,
so
I can relate at least a little bit. I miss being around other authors, but that happens like once every 2 years for me at this point. And I get to see like 2 people I know. But yeah, I can relate to being able to sit around with people who create the same kind of things as you and just being able to be like, so characters are assholes, right?
Right.
Just it's nice. So that's really cool.
Which I would imagine there are probably many things about that a lot of people don't know how to talk about.
Yeah, it's different. Now, like I love seeing readers and having those chances to go have dinner with them and like talk about stories and stuff. But it's totally different when you're talking to an author about their writing process or just how the struggle that they're going through about like feeling like shit for a week and not getting anything done and like relating to that. So yeah I wish I could find a way to somehow meet up with people like a little group of my friends every couple months like you're doing with your narrators, like just being in those spaces kind of, I know it's probably the same with you, but it kind of reinvigorates me. Like it makes me want to get back in and work because you're around all these creative, amazing people and listening to their projects and what they're working on. You're like, oh God, I gotta get home to my computer so I can work on shit. Right. So yeah.
There's just something about being able to speak freely.
Yeah.
Like you don't have to, and like, not that anybody I know in real life is like, no, don't tell me about your job.
Right.
But it's just like, you sort of have to just filter out those parts that you're like, nobody's going to understand what this is.
Right.
Nobody's going to understand what I'm even saying.
Yeah.
And like, so even if I say it, all they're going to do is be like,
yeah.
You know, like it's not a conversation starter. It would be just me talking at people.
Right.
And that I'm not interested in. It's so nice to have a conversation.
Yeah.
So yeah, now that I met a new Chicago narrator, one of my best friends is a Chicago narrator.
Love it.
And my last mentee for the DEI program through the Audio Publishers Association lives in Chicago.
Cool.
So I have 3 narrator friends in Chicago now.
Great.
Great. We're going to start doing hangouts.
Yeah, I was about to say, for sure.
We just need to find a reason to come together every few months. Because you can't count on the New York people to fly to the Midwest on a regular basis.
Yeah, that's asking a lot, I think. Well, that's cool.
So yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah. I also want to shout out a sort of family member.
Okay.
Distant family, an in-law by marriage. So I went to my nephew's wedding a few weeks ago, and I forgot to bring it up on the 2 podcasts we've recorded, I think, since then.
Nice.
But I met my husband's cousin, Tracy, from Canada.
Excellent.
And like one of the first things she said was, I listen to the podcast. And I was like,
so cool.
What? So she like knew things about me. She knew things about you.
How cool.
She was really interested in all the writing things that the authors have talked about.
Yeah.
And I was just like, this is so cool and strange.
I love it.
And here's I was like, you know so much more about me than I know about you right now.
Yeah, that would be a little strange, especially considering it's a family member. So you're like, oh, hi,
as we may have discussed before, like it's my husband's family is all very close, even though it's a very large, spread out family. So I can't be close to all of them.
Well, yeah, that's a lot. And I think me and you both have not the same family dynamic. Like I don't have a large family and I'm not terribly close with everybody. So that concept is wild to me.
In that we are the same.
Yeah.
So yeah, but it was so lovely to finally really get to spend some time with her.
That's cool.
And get to know her and her husband. And so hello, Tracy, if you're listening.
Hi, Tracy.
Thank you for being a listener. We appreciate you, and we appreciate all our listeners.
Oh, of course.
But if you happen to be related to me in some strange way, or Maz, do let us know.
Yeah, for sure. If
Chime in.
A weird random cousin I don't know about, I'm here for it.
Exactly. Exactly. So coming up next week on the Patreon, we have some cool things. We have Two Who Live On. Episode 4 comes out on Tuesday. Then our weekly Animorphs episode will be number 37, The Weakness. That comes out on Wednesday. And then do you have some writing stuff coming out next week?
I started doing work in progress chapters for Save the Vampire. I think I mentioned that last time.
Yes.
Okay.
That comes out today.
Yes, today.
In podcast time.
Yes. So
will there be another one next week?
Yeah.
Okay.
So there'll be chapter
we're
2.
Weekly again?
Yeah, we're weekly again because I'm pretty far along in this book. So, and unless Jess comes back and is like, you got to rewrite all this stuff, then everything will be great. But I mean, if she
does, it's a work in progress.
Exactly.
Chapter,
so I'll be like, this is what it looks like right now. Probably going to change, but we'll see. I mean,
are you finding that posting the work in progress chapters is helping to keep you motivated?
Yeah, actually, because I have to make sure that a certain amount is banked so I have something to share for everyone. But I also need to give myself plenty of room. So if I can't get in and write, then I'm not like trying to whip something out and like it be garbage or disappoint somebody. So yeah, it's been like, okay, now that I have X amount, I feel comfortable releasing it and getting people's feedback and hopefully people enjoying it. So
good.
Yeah, but it's been very motivational for me.
Good.
Man.
It would be nice if that was the case.
Yeah, it is helping.
Not a burden, but motivational.
Yeah. It's definitely a positive thing.
Great. Well, sort of along those lines, and this is not going to seem like a good segue at first, but we'll get there.
Okay.
The Olympics are happening right now. And I saw a statistic today that there are more openly LGBTQ plus athletes at the Olympics this year than ever before.
Love it.
And the thing about being an Olympian is you have to be like the top of your game to be able to succeed.
Yeah.
Not only the top of your field, because we have seen every single year, every single Olympics, that there are people who come into the competition who are considered like the front runners and like they're definitely going to do great. And then something happens and they falter and they don't make the impression that everybody thought they would.
Right.
You know, it happens. So you really have to be like at the top of your game to do well. And so I was wondering about when in our careers as a writer and a narrator, we have felt like we were at the top of our game.
Yeah, that's a great question. I had to think about this a lot because my knee-jerk reaction was I haven't. I was like, that hasn't happened to me yet. And really, I think what I would consider like the best I've ever done is yet to come. Like that's I get better every year kind of thing. But when I really,
unlike athletes, we don't. Yeah, our bodies won't shut down. We won't age out of this by 22.
Right. Exactly. You know? Yeah. But when I was being fair to myself, I was like, you know what? No, a couple of years ago, I was really doing great. And I hit a point where I was very proud of where I was and how I was doing and was really thinking like, okay, hell, I'm going to be able to do this full time in the next like 2 years. Spoiler alert, that didn't happen, but it was
still working on it.
Yeah. But I think the best year I've had so far was the year I was able to partner with that book box, Obsidian Moon Crate. And it was the first time I'd ever been involved in something like that. I had a hard deadline that I needed to hit, which really motivated me to just write my heart out. And I like saw a boost in my sales and followers. And I thought my writing was really, really good at the time because I was like knocking out the Relic books too. And I was like, oh, I'm funny and this is working. And I'm like having such a good time with it. And so I think it was the first time that I was seeing the effort I was putting into my marketing and my networking and my writing. Like I was really consuming a lot of craft books during that time too. Like I was really focused on doing really good work and it was working. It was trending well and people were enjoying the stories. And I was like, oh shit, like this is amazing. You know, I was like going to cons and people were like, I had a line for the first time ever. It was just one of those, like, I really was kicking ass. And then, you know, as things happen, when you feel like you're flying the highest, you have that dip and it's kind of like it was trending well. And then it just kind of has drooped back down since then. But yeah, I was like, okay, no, that's when I think I was doing my best was about like 2 years ago. It was just, I felt so awesome. And I've been trying to, I feel like get back to that point ever since.
No.
If that makes sense.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. Yeah. For me, actually, before I say for me, can I say what I thought you were going to talk about?
What?
And maybe it was around the same time.
Okay.
I remember very vividly when the first Relic book came out that it like made a splash and it had the orange banner.
Oh yeah.
And like Tantor was reaching out to do the audiobook.
Yeah.
And like that felt to me like a real like watermark.
Yeah.
Or water line. High water line. What's the expression? Oh, never
I
mind.
don't know.
That felt like a really significant point in your career.
It was,
because you were getting a lot of really positive attention for this thing that you were really passionate about.
Yeah. It was around the same time. Like it was like that was kind of the kickoff point to all those things kind of going from there. Because after Smash and Grab and then Sink and Swim came out, I think that's when somebody approached me to be in the book box, like to be in a different one before I got on with Find the Gen. And I was like, oh my God, like people are asking me to partner with them. And like, that's when Tantor reached out and I was like, I didn't even think that was ever going to be my life because I was still trying to figure out how I was going to like scrounge up the money to pay for it myself, like take out a loan and shit. So it was just so cool to have that just positive reinforcement. Like you're doing good. You're doing what you need to get where you want in your career. It was so fucking cool.
Yeah.
But what about you? What was your
moment? Honestly, it's much more recent. I would feel like, I think it's sort of like the couple of months before the beginning of April of this year.
Yeah.
Like before we started taking a week off every month and going on all these vacations.
Yeah.
I really felt like I had hit a stride and I was getting all my work done when I said I was going to get it done. I was meeting deadlines. I was getting done early.
Yeah.
Like I took a couple Fridays off at the beginning of this year.
Yeah.
Because I powered through, had some super productive days and got shit done. And so it really was like just the power of routine and how simple that is. Where it's like, yeah, I went in every day and at a certain time I was in the booth and I was ready to record and I just got as much done as I could before it was time to stop. And there was the consistency of being home and having the same routine.
Yeah.
I was working a lot of weekends because I was also doing podcast stuff.
Right.
But yeah, it really felt like, oh, I finally figured out this narrator thing. I have some balance.
Yeah.
I'm having a bit of a real life, and I'm getting my work done. And so that felt good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So have you been trying to like just get back to that consistency?
Well, so here's the thing, like, how do I?
Yeah. You tell me. I would love to know your secret.
When life, like, because that's the thing is you can't say no to everything to make sure that every day looks the same as the day before.
Yeah.
So I think the next significant, I'm still trying to think if it's waterline. There's some expression.
I can't think of it.
Yeah, the next significant milestone, I guess, will be when I can break up my routine, go on a vacation, direct a musical, go to a convention, get sick.
Yeah.
And still turn around and come back and be as productive as I was.
Yeah.
You know? But it's just that uphill struggle of every time the routine gets broken, you have to try to find your way back into the space.
Yeah.
So that was also like the beginning of this year was also when I was releasing my other podcast for the first time. And like I was getting some attention in my industry and I was getting auditions I hadn't been getting before.
Yeah.
So that always felt very good. Like, so yeah, there were many reasons why the beginning of this year really felt like a good place for me. That felt like the top of my game. And not that I've fallen so far, but it's just like once we started going on trips.
Yeah. Really disruptive.
It's really disruptive.
Yeah.
When I think the thing I have discovered is the most successful for me is just doing the same thing every day on repeat for at least a few hours.
Yeah.
You know, like, and then that gives me the freedom with the rest of my day to do all my other crazy brain shit.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So
makes sense.
So I think we need to find an equilibrium because I can't just not do anything else.
Right. Yeah. That's not the answer.
You know?
Yeah.
Forever. But we got, and maybe we just need to space out the interruptions a little bit, be a little more conscious with how often
Yeah.
we're breaking the routine when we have control over it, because then sometimes things you don't have control over
Right.
pop right up.
Yeah, exactly. Those are the ones that really kick you in the ass.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So when you're having these periods of success and productivity, how does that make you feel?
I mean, obviously it makes me feel amazing. But I also recognize that during those really productive, amazing times is typically when I will burn the candle at both ends because I'm doing really well. So then I try to do more because I'm like, okay, this is doing really great. What's the extra marketing I can do to push it? Or like, yeah, I'll sign up for that anthology because I'm riding the high of doing really well. And so that's another thing I've got to try to wedge in towards the end of the year or something. So I tend to overbook myself when I'm doing great and I'm feeling fantastic and I really feel like I have my shit together. And that never works because there is always a certain point of the year that I forget that I hit a depression or the season kicks my ass or the sun goes down at 4:00 and so my body shuts down and doesn't want to do anything. And you'd think that living here for 4 years, I'd be like, oh, hey, don't plan on doing anything in like February because you're going to be sad. You know what I mean? But I don't think about that. So during like right now, this time of year is usually when I'm at my best. So I'm really like knocking things out and I overcommit and then I try to do all these, like, look at my damn whiteboard. I've got stuff scheduled for February. I know better. Like I need to just go back in and be like, no, like we're not doing that. But I just get so excited and I keep wanting to just do better and put more things out and, have that scare of not being relevant that I push myself too hard. And then I tend to feel like double like crap when those eventual downfalls happen. So it's a double-edged sword because I feel fantastic and I get a lot done, but I tend to not think of future Maz's
well-being.
Well-being. So
yeah.
What about you?
I gotta say, it just felt really great.
Yeah.
It was like, finally.
Yeah.
We've hit the stride. We're on the right medication.
We're doing the thing. Yeah.
We're doing it. But then, it's like when you're not in it, then it's like, oh.
Yeah,
it does feel like, okay, there's something to strive for. It feels like, you're not being successful. Even when sometimes the reason you're not getting something done is out of your control. Right. Or it was planned. There's always a bit of a lull in finances when you're a freelancer.
Yeah.
But like, now I'm in the phase where it's like, oh, I'm starting to feel the effects of taking a week off every month.
Yeah.
For several months in a row, and also going on trips. Like, so yeah, and because the other part about feeling good about the beginning of this year was like how financially good it felt.
Yeah.
To be like on top of shit. But
yeah, for sure.
It didn't last long.
Yeah, can relate. Like my sales have dipped and not being able to reorder stickers when I need to because I'm like, nope, I can't afford $30 right now. Like that sucks. And I think that's just that extra little twist of the knife when you already feel like you're not doing good enough by your own standards, that your wallet's also being like, you're not, what I mean? Like we're having a hard time. So yeah. So it'll be interesting to see if we cycle back to this conversation in the future. Yeah. Where we feel we are at in that scale. Yeah. Come ask me in February. How are we doing? Maybe we should. Maybe we should revisit this conversation in the winter and see. Yeah. See where we're at. Yeah. Because it does make a difference. The seasons in Wisconsin, they make a difference. Yes. It's easier to feel like you have time in the day to get shit done when the sun doesn't go down until 9:00. Right. Yeah. Versus 4 p.m. Yeah. It really, really messes with me. Yeah. So, 100%. Yeah. If we circle back in February, it's just going to be me, no makeup. I'm in like a weird Snuggie I've been wearing for 4 days. I'm going to be like, I'm doing great. No, you wouldn't lie. No, I wouldn't. I'd be like, I need help. Yeah. I just need to go back to bed. Yeah. So I'm trying to think if there's a way to incorporate a listener question into this,
but I don't want to be like, tell me a time when you were feeling great, and then also a time when you weren't.
Yeah, right. Tell us the saddest story that you have.
Saddest story
no,
you have.
don't do that, please.
So
we'll just be depressed.
Let's just end it on. Those are some times where we felt really great, and also some times where we didn't feel as successful. I think everybody probably goes through that.
I was going to say everyone can relate to that.
Your job or whatever it is that keeps you busy all day long. We all have pressures and feel like sometimes we're killing it and sometimes we're not.
Yeah.
And I hope you're enjoying the Olympics if that's your thing.
Yeah.
Because it seems to be that like every 2 years, the whole world suddenly cares about sports.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even me. I'm like, we were watching men's gymnastics yesterday.
Well, it's cool, right? Because you're like we were saying, we're watching the best of the best do things that are impossible for us. Like I would never be able to do that, ever. So it's really cool to watch that. Also, side note, did you know about, I don't know if it's the Summer Olympics, I think it is, where they try out the like weird sports that are trying to vie to become an Olympic sport, but they're all these like offshoot weird ass sports. Like one of them being, what is it? It's like a boxing match, but with chess boxing, where you play chess, but then you have to get up and box.
No, I did not know about that.
There's another one that's contact juggling, where you juggle, but you also have to like push each other.
Wrestle?
Yeah, kind of. Like you have to like juggle, but then also throw off your opponent while they're juggling. So you have to like try to like knock the pins out of their hands, but you also have to keep juggling. Like you have to have like 3 or 4 pins going at one time.
I thought you were going to say like pickleball.
No, these are just the weirdest things I've ever seen. And I'm fully invested now. I want like competition or like contact juggling to be a thing so bad, because that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And I'm super into it. So
agreed.
Yeah, it's just love it. So yeah, I forgot where I heard that, but I was like, this is so funny. And I think it's so cool.
That's a much more delightful way to end the episode. So I'm glad we talked about weird sports happening.
Go look it up.
That want to be Olympic events.
Yes, so cool.
But thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Hoof and Fang podcast. You can find us all over social media by searching for Hoof and Fang, or you can find links to our social media through our website, hoofandfangpodcast.com, where you can also find a link to our Patreon, where we hope you will join us so you can experience all the wonderful benefits that our Patreon members have. And even if you don't want a paid subscription, you can sign up for free notifications of the cool stuff that we're doing. Sometimes you get little sneak peeks and previews of the behind the paywall stuff.
Yeah.
If you're a member, even at the free level over on Patreon. So we hope you will join us there. Until next week, goodbye.